Welcome to my coding school. So in this new series, we are going to look at the CSS Grid layout. So let's get started. So here, I have some few key points. The CSS Grid layout, or simply the grid, or the CSS Grid is a two-dimensional grid-based layout system. That means that it has rows, and then it has columns, and then with this, it makes it easier to design web page layouts, to align items, and then to distribute the space among these items. So unlike in Flexbox, where we had only just one dimension, meaning that the items just could be horizontally or vertical aligned, but here we can have both horizontal and then vertical alignment. So a simple flow of learning would be, by now you should have covered some basic HTML, and then CSS, and then Flexbox, and then the next logical step would be the CSS grid. So to understand this, let's take a look at some simple terminology here. In this grid layout, we have what we call a container, which is the parent element, and then we have these children here, which are the grid items, that they are the immediate children. So in the code, it would look something like this. We have this div, the parent div, with the class of container. Then we have these items 1 through 6. So that's how it will look like. So here in VS Code, we have a div with a class of container, and then we have 9 items. We have this grid item class to each of these items, and then we have a class specific for this item. So now we have a container, a grid container, and then the grid items. So now let's look at this simple diagram. So we have what we call a grid line. So this is an horizontal or vertical line dividing in a grid. So here, if we have this simple diagram here that you see here, the line that comes from up to down, for example, this one here, the red one, this is called a column grid line. And then if we get this other one that runs to this side, we call it a row grid line. So we have a grid cell, which is the smallest unit you can have in a CSS grid. It's simply denoted by this cell 4, the whole of this. And then we have a grid track, which is the space between two adjacent grid lines, like the way you see this entire portion is called a grid track. Then we have the grid area, which is the total space covered or surrounded by 4 grid lines. We are talking about this area, taking 3, 4, 7, and 8. So this is the grid area. And then this grid area can have any number of cells. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. And then we have the grid container properties. Now we have learned that we shall have the grid container, and then the grid items, and then the line that separates going down is called column grid line, and then row grid line, and then a cell like this, and then a grid track, this portion here, and then the grid area, this portion here. So now we have 18 properties on the container, and to start with, we have the display. So the display property is mandatory to work with the grid. This one has 2 properties, but before that, let's first look at the whole of them, their sets. So we have the display, which defines the grid container, and it should be on every grid container. And then we have 3 of these properties, these ones here. They are called the grid template columns, grid template rows, and then the grid template. These are used to set the number of columns and the number of rows in a grid. And then we have column gap here, and then row gap here, and then the gap, these are used to set the gap between columns and rows, and the gap is simply a shorthand for these two, and then the grid template is simply a shorthand for these two, and then we have justify content. This is deals with the alignment of the entire grid, and justify content, align content, and then place content, and also one of these will be along the row, and then the other one along the column, and then this one will be in both directions, and then we have grid auto columns, then grid auto rows, then grid auto flow, which I used to deal with auto-generated grid tracks. So now let's start with an example. So we are going to set the display to a grid container, which can be inline grid or just grid, to create a block level or an inline level grid container. So by default, this will create one column. It will add all items, and then it will behave like a block level elements. That means that it will span the entire width of the browser. So now here we are in the code. So what I'll do here is I'll go into the CSS, and then I'll get the container div, and then I'll set that display to, grid to start with, and here I'll get the item, the class of item 1, item, increase this a bit, item 1, and then what I'll do is simply set the background a different color so we can be able to identify each. So I'll repeat this for the rest of the classes. So we have 9 of them. So this will be 2, and then I'll give it green, and then for item 3, this will be red, and then this one will be yellow. This is item 4, this is item 5, and this will be purple, and then item 6, and this will be which color? Maroon. Then this is item 7, here. I shall give it orange, and then we have 2 more to go. This one we shall give it magenta, and this is item 8, and then for item 9, we shall give it, let's say, gray here. Then if I save and then go into the browser, I will now have this. What I'll do is I'll come to this class here that is called a grid item, and then what I'll do is I'll put it up here, and then I'll add in some padding to these items. Padding, let's say it's in pixels. This save, and now they have some little bit of spacing. And now here we say that on the container by default this will behave like block level elements. So you will see that item 1 will start from here at the beginning towards the end, but we said we can set it to inline grid, okay, inline grid. Let's remove this property, and then if I go here, then wait for it to load. Now you see that the elements will move downwards. So what I'll do is I'll leave it to just grid. By default we have 1 column. So now let's go to the next thing. So to have columns in the grid, we have to set the grid template columns property. It takes values separated by spaces, each specifying the size of that column. So here, if we specify 100 pixels and then 200 pixels and then 300 pixels, we shall have 3 columns. The rest of the items, if any, I'll push to the new row with the same columns. So now let's start with this property here, the grid template column. So here back in the code, the container, I'll set the grid template columns, and then I'll start by 100 pixels. Then this one is 200 pixels, and then 300 pixels. So now what we are doing is we are removing the default value, which is 1 column, and then we are simply setting 3 columns to the container each. This one has 100, 200, then 300. So if I save and come here, you'll see now that we have item 1 and item 2, item 3, and they go up to 3 columns because that's what we have specified. This is 100, this is 200, and then this is 300, and then the same goes for these other ones below. So what I'll do here is I'll add a border at the top here so that we can see the container. Border is going to be, let's say 2 pixels, solid black, like this, and then now we can see that. And now the next part is called grid template rows. This one will simply give us the number of rows. So we can say the same 100 pixels, and then 200 pixels, and then 300 pixels. So now if I go back, you'll see now that this one, the column is simply 100, and then this one is also 100. Then the same goes for this, is 200 by 200, and then 300 by 300. And then what I can do here is I can use the repeat function. So instead, I'll do repeat, and then for 3 columns, and then what I'll do is I'll just give them the same value, and then save. And then we shall have all of the columns with equal column sizes. And then I can also do this for repeat, and then here I'll set it to 3. Then instead I'll give them 200 each for pixels here, and then we have equal rows and equal columns. So if I have more than the rows that I can write here, I simply use the repeat, give me number of rows and columns, and then the size of each. So I can also modify this to 6, for example, save, and then we shall have all of the 6, but of the same size. We have an overflow this side, but that's how we deal with these two. And then the other one is called, we are done with the grid template property of the column, and then we have also done this other one, grid template row. Here we have some more points to note. We have used the repeat function, and the other one is, let's try to use these fractions which are proportion, and then we shall be done with this video. So now instead I can have 3 columns and then set them to 1 fraction, and then here I'll also set them to 1 fraction, and then if I save and then go to the browser, you'll see now that they'll all take the same. So if this is 100, each of these will take the same equal values. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.